This book is called The Sermons of the Guardian of Devotion, and is the first volume. There are 4 volumes presently. And this is chapter 4, The Honest Enquirer. So this is Srila Sridhar Maharaj speaking to his disciples and devotees in Navadvip, India. We should note the difference between a servant and a trader. Many approach with some trading purpose, but the character of the real devotee should be that of a servant. Sri Prahlad Maharaj has mentioned that one who associates with the sadhus, wanting something in return for his personal interest, is making trade with the sadhus. He thinks, how much can I gain and how much shall I have to give? But a pure devotee should not have any such separate interest. Rather, he should try to merge with the interest of the Lord. In whatever position he is, it doesn't matter whether he is a brahmachari, a sannyasi, a grihasta, a vanaprastha, or any other position, he must be willing to merge. Vishyate tad anantaram. So that means brahmachari means a celibate student, sannyasi means a monk, a grihasta means a married person who has a home, and a vanaprastha means a retired person. So these are all from Varnashram Dharma, which is the ancient social system of India. So Guru Maharaj is saying whatever his position, he should be willing to merge with the desire or the interest of the Lord rather than our own interest. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj has explained in simple terms that there are basically 3 levels of consciousness in this material world. And first of all, which is most prevalent, is that of the exploiter. So, and we are all exploiters. Without exploiting, you can't live in this world. You must exploit something in nature just to live. But rather, that becomes our main focus in life. So, in other words, we see everything with an eye of how to exploit it for our betterment. So, whatever we come into connection with, we measure it with this measuring stick. Will it be useful to me or not? If I, engage with this particular thing or this particular person, will that be useful to me? If I enter into a relationship with this person, will that benefit me or not benefit me? This is basic material life 101. This is my father's fatherly advice to his son. The father sits his son on his knee and says, son, I'll tell you some secrets of life, and this will serve you well in the future. Well, my father, he sat me on his knee and he told me, son, never do anything for anyone unless there's something in it for you. That was his advice to me, his guidance to me. And okay, thanks, Dad. That was, but that's basically materialism 101. What's in it for me? And this all rises from the misconception of I, me, and mine. So that means we think that we're the center of our own little universe and everything it revolves around us. And, whether we think that's a desirable thing or not, it's a kind of matter-of-fact thing. Everyone says you've got to look after number one. No one else is going to look out for you.
But your last thoughts are your kids like.
Yeah, of course.
Don't do this, don't do that, and don't get involved with the wrong people.
Of course, that's normal.
That's normal things.
That's normal, yes, of course. But generally, we're saying that this is the mindset of most people. And then, when people see a second phase of consciousness in life is when people see that by exploitation is reactionary. So whatever you do good or bad will come back to you, as the law of karma, or as Newton told, I think it's the fourth law of physics, Newtonian physics, is that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So we see that. If we do good, generally good will come back to us. If we do bad, something bad will come to us. So that's not a bad way to think in life. But some think, if everything I do is reactionary, then better not to engage in anything. Better to withdraw from the world. Better to find a cave in the Himalayas and go and live in there, But nowadays, of course, if you find yourself a little cave and go to live in the cave and meditate, then before you know it, there'll be a knock on your cave door asking to see your lease or your, ownership of that, and why you haven't paid your cave tax. So, this is... But we understand the principle, right? If I engage in this world, then some reaction is going to come to me, whether it's good, whether it's bad. Then better to disengage from that. But our Guru Maharaj says, we know that saying, no man is an island. So none of us live in isolation. To the rest of the world, we all have to engage with the world. So he said, that's like going on strike, not to engage with anything in the world. So, so the first, it's like Guru Maharaj gives this example, like if you work for a company, and while the boss is away, you just rob the company. We know people do that, right? When the boss is away, I'll have that stapler, I'll have those post-it notes, I'll have this calculator, whatever it is. So, we've all been there, we've all done it. But, if while the boss is away, everyone's putting their hand in the till, then pretty soon that company is going to fail, isn't it? And not only will that be bad news for the owner of the company, it'll be bad news for you as an employee of that company, because you'll be out of a job. And similarly, if everybody downs tools and says, okay, I'm not going to work because there's not enough in it for me to work, or go on strike, that's also not the normal situation. Without getting into the merits of whether one should go on strike or not, sometimes it's necessary, the only thing you can do. But the idea is that it's not the normal state of affairs if you want to, the business that you're involved with, if you want it to be successful. So we all have to work as a whole. So this is this third stage of consciousness in life is the plane of dedication. So rather than exploiting or rather than renouncing the world, we try to utilize everything for the collective whole. So people understand that in a broad way. But in terms of spiritual life, this becomes a turning point in the consciousness of the seeker, that we're thinking, if I engage with God, if I engage with Krishna, what's going to be the benefit to me? And we see that, right? We see that people come here, they have this idea, if I put £1 in the donation box for Krishna, it'll come back 100 times to me. And that's okay, that's fine. But that, we can say, that's not pure devotion. That's as Guru Maharaj is explaining here, that's a trader's mentality. So when we come to understand that everything is his creation, and that everything in his creation is meant for him, so then as we are also part of that creation, that means we are also for him. So this is a turning point in consciousness. Rather than what will I get out of it, then the consciousness comes, what can I do to contribute to him or to the center? And Guru Maharaj used to quote John Kennedy, the American president, who said, think not or ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what can I do for my country. So in a similar way, don't ask Krishna what he can do for you, but rather ask, what can I do for Krishna? And why Krishna? Why is Krishna considered to be the central figure? Because he is Parameshvara. That means the supreme controller, the supreme enjoyer, and the supreme benefactor of everything. This is explained very clearly in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. That is very clearly explained there. But also, there's one book which was discovered about 500 years ago in South India called Brahma Samhita. And Brahma Samhita is the prayers of the Creator, Lord Brahma. And the very first verse of that book says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karana. This is Lord Brahma. You were speaking with our Darkesh Prabhu earlier about the Trinity, Brahma, Mahesh and Vishnu. So Brahma being one of the Trinity, he prays to Krishna. Ishvara Parama Krishna. That Krishna, he is the Parameshvara. Means he's the supreme. He is the supreme. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha. He is the embodiment of truth, eternity, Sat, consciousness, Chit, and Ananda, ecstasy or bliss. Satchidananda Vigraha. That means he's the embodiment, the very embodiment of that. Anadir Adir Govinda. And he is the original cowherd boy of Vrindavan. And Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. So, when you're a kid, I remember when I was a kid, I asked my mum, if God created us, who created God? And, it's a kind of question that any kid might ask, or even an adult. But the answer is, he is ever existing. He existed forever. No one created him. He's always there. They're difficult for us to conceive because where we live now in this material world, everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So we think in a linear way. So if we were created, there must have been a point in time when that happened. And then if we were created, then God must also be created. But God is achintya, inconceivable, above our
Before the dinosaurs.
Before the dinosaurs, yeah. So, he's ever existing within the spiritual realm. In fact, he says in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, Dehenusmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tatta dehantaras praptir dhiras tatra namuyate. He says, never was the time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, and never in the future will any of us cease to be. So this is the truth of the reality of all existence. We existed before we were born, and we'll exist after we die. It is the cycle of birth and death, commonly understood as reincarnation. So, Krishna always exists. And Krishna means God. So, everyone has different conceptions about God. That's why there are so many religions in the world. But what is that? We say that in different countries, according to different language and so on, people see the sun and call him by different names. So here we say the sun. In Latin America, where my wife's from, they say Sol. In India, they say Surya. And so all over the world, they have different names for the sun. But it doesn't mean that there's an English, well, we doubt there's an English sun, but sometimes there's an English sun, or an Indian sun, or a South American sun. The sun is the sun, same for everyone, just called by different names. So God is God, and just called by different names by different peoples of different countries and cultures and so on.
One time people used to look at the sun by telling the time.
Yeah, that's right.
And before watches were invented.
Yeah, we were once upon a time we were very much connected with the rhythms of the earth, and now, even though it's pouring with rain outside, we have to have a check on our phone. Is it raining? On the weather app. Oh, it's raining. But once upon a time, before all those things, instinctively people knew. What's the right time to plant crops, what's the right time to harvest them particular things. Yeah, so many things. But unfortunately we've lost all that because of our reliance on technology, which is meant to help us, but somehow we seem to become its slaves. Anyway, so we're talking about, here Srila Sridhar is talking about who is a real servant of the Lord, a real searcher after the truth. So he says, he will not like to keep any separate account. His sole objective will be to enter into the family of Godhead. This is the very basis of pure devotion. Tato mam tatvato gyata vishyate tad anantaram. Excuse me. This is from the Bhagavad Gita. We want to surrender or to be one of common interest with the Lord, and not to approach, ask some questions, pocket the answers, and then make trade with them elsewhere in any way. Once, when I was being asked many questions, I replied, this is not an inquiry office. The inquisitive want to satisfy their idle curiosity, or they want to be masters of many keys, that they will be able to give solutions to everyone's problems and attain some status. They have many motives, but they cannot understand the real necessity. We require specific articles to execute worship, such as incense, flowers, lamp, etc. Similarly, if we wish to realize the supersubjective plane, there are three specific necessities: pranipat, pariprashna, and seva. Without these three ingredients, our search will be imitative, unsubstantial, and farcical. So what Guru Maharaj is referring to here is a very famous verse of Bhagavad Gita. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekyanti te jnanam jnaninas tapta darshana. So Krishna is advising his friend Arjuna, the warrior Arjuna, if you want to know the truth, you should approach a spiritual master. And to approach the spiritual master, you need these three prerequisites. Pranipat, pariprashna, sevaya. So pranipat means exclusive regard, that I've come to you because I believe that you can show me the truth. Not that, this week I'm looking about Krishna consciousness, next week I'm studying Zen, or next week I'm, down the mosque, or whatever it might be. No, you have to have some exclusive regard. When you have that exclusive regard, that's the first thing. And then that's pranipat. Then pariprashna means relative inquiry, a proper inquiry. So, not just to satisfy our curiosity, but something that will actually help us to advance our spiritual understanding. So, we can say, if we examine ourselves deeply within, we will see where we are and what is our inner necessity. Then the questions that relate to that will be relevant inquiry. I am here, I'd like to go there. How do I get from here to there? This is a topic that's relevant to a spiritual seeker. Why am I here? Why do I exist? Why do I find myself in this material world? Why am I suffering? Why? All these things, they're all fundamental spiritual inquiries. who am I?
Yeah, I just want to ask you, Prabhu, when you have a spiritual name, do they have a name for that, like sannyas? Is that what they call it?
No, generally you get a spiritual name, you can say spiritual name, at the time of initiation by the spiritual master.
So it's initiation, yeah.
At the time of initiation. Not always, because sometimes, especially Indian people, they already have spiritual names, according to our tradition.
Yeah.
He may be Krishna Das, and so the guru may say, oh, Krishna Das, very good name, you can be Krishna Das, that's fine. But
and that's when they put the outfit on as well. That's for initiation.
Yeah, but that's only a formal thing. It doesn't mean that unless you wear this outfit you can't be initiated, or it's something a little deeper than that. But the idea is, when we say a spiritual name, the idea is that it's a name that reminds us of God.
Okay.
So it's usually a name of God or one of God's great devotees. So that gives us, in our tradition, gives us some remembrance of that.
Then Krishna consciousness is just step up. Like.
Yeah, but it's not like it in a hierarchy or anything like that. Oh, now I've made it, now I'm better than those that aren't initiated. No, it's just
spiritual name, but
it's just it is more or less a formality in one sense. And the saying, a rose by any name would smell just as sweet. So whatever name you go by that's not the main criteria. The main criteria is your nature. But for our benefit, usually we're given a name at the time of initiation to help us remember God. So like my name is Devashis Das. So that means, Deva means God. And Ashish means blessings that come on your head. So, and Das means the servant. So my name means the servant of those who have the blessings of God on their head. That's what my name means. And if I can remember that, then that's very good for my spiritual consciousness. So, pranipat, exclusive regard, pariprashna, relative inquiry, and sevaya. Sevaya means to serve. So, service of God, service to the center is crucial. And why is it crucial? Because in the spiritual world, if we wish to go from this material world to the spiritual world, everyone there, their nature is that of a servant. They don't go there to be a master. Here we try to be a master of all we survey, and we try to engage people as our servants as much as we can. But we want to be the servant of God, and that means to be submissive to the truth. So that's sevaya is necessary. It's not that God needs to be served, or that he's this selfish man that wants everything for himself or something like that. But we need that for our benefit, because that's part of who we are. That's actually our inner nature is that of a servant. One of our founders, Srila Prabhupada, he used to say that everyone has to serve. Naturally, everyone has to serve. They serve their boss, they serve their country, they serve their family, and if they don't have anyone to serve, they buy a dog or a cat and serve them. It's natural for us to serve others, and it's actually abnormal for us to desire to be served and to try and find those lower than us that can serve us. It's an abnormal state.
So would you say Prabhupada's Sridhar Maharaj is gone to the spiritual world now?
Yeah, and they're not. There wasn't a time when they weren't in the spiritual world.
So they've always been in there.
But even when they come in, the saints, they come from the spiritual world as emissaries of that world, of that plane, to try and wake us up.
Yeah.
But we don't always like to be woken up, isn't it? When my daughter was younger, we had to wake her up. I need to wake her up to go to school. Yeah. Sometimes she said, "Dad, I'm having a really important dream. Stop!" I'd be like, "Oh, you've spoilt it now, Yeah, but you're going to be late for school." Then when she's downstairs dressed and ready to go to school, eating her breakfast, I say, so what was that important dream that you had? Oh, I can't remember now, But that's how we are. Now we're like in this kind of sleeping state of our spiritual consciousness. We're not thinking about spirituality. We're thinking about this body and everything that's in relation to that, our mind, our thoughts, all these things. And if someone says, time to wake up, like, oh, I'm doing something very important. I have something very important to take care of. I don't want to, you just go away. But still, the sadhus, they try to, give some injection to wake us up. Like Guru Maharaj gives an example about this, like when someone's in a coma or, like they've been in a crash, they're unconscious. So the doctors, they have to do some medicine and, give some treatment and everything. But if by some way, by some injection or something like that, they can wake the person, then the person can say, oh yeah, it hurts here, or I've got pain here on this side of my head. Then in cooperation with the doctor, they get a better result. So something like that. We need to wake up a little bit so we can cooperate with the spiritual teachers. So Krishna tells Arjuna this. Pranipat, Pariprashna, Sevaya. These three things, they're the prerequisites for approaching a spiritual master. If you approach with these things, then he can connect you with the truth because he's already connected with the truth. So like that, if you want your electricity, when you move into a new house and you want the electricity switched on, you have to ring up the electric board, isn't it? And say, I need you to put on, I've just moved in, I need you. If you ring some other company, they're not going to be able to do it for you, are you? If you ring up social services, can you switch on my electric? They're going to say, no. You have to go to the electric board to get that done, So similarly, we need to approach the proper source to get the proper result. So now Guru Maharaj is explaining what these three things mean. Pranipat means to fall flat near the feet of the worshipable. I have come to the end of all enterprises and with my previous plane of life. I could find nothing there to fulfill my life's objectives. Finally, after completing all my errands, I have come here. This is the practical symptom of pranipat. And pariprashna means sincere inquiry. Honest and sincere inquiry is allowed. The spirit of such inquiry is, I want to know how I can be utilized in any way. All the charm for living elsewhere is over. My sole inquiry is how can I be utilized here? And seva, service, is the all-important factor. I have come to serve and to be utilized for the cause of the subject about which I have inquired. I have not come to take anything from here. I have come only to serve with no other motive. Tad vijnanartam sa gurum eva vigachet shamit ponai shroti jam brahma nishtam. This is from the Mukunda Upanishad. Abhigachat means samyak gachet, not with a return ticket. Abhi means samyak, fully. I have completely lost my charm for the previous life. I have come to surrender to Shroti Jam Brahmanistam, to one who can teach me, being already in a position in the divinity and in possession both theoretical and practical knowledge about the objective. Without this process, everything will be futile. Tasmad gurum prapadyeta jignashu shreya uttamam shabde pare janishnatam brahmanya upa shamamya samashrayam. Tasmat means consequently, because the candidate has lost all charm for the world of his previous experience. He has consequently approached with the sole objective of seeking an honorable place here for his future life. Prapadyeta means prapananam, surrender. He will exclusively devote himself for the cause. Jigna shurshreya uttamam. He has come in search of a higher life. The lower lives are over. Can I have an elevated life here? He is therefore surrendering to one who is versed in both aspects of the truth, the reality, pare, as well as the literary description of that reality, shabde or shroti shastre, that which is revealed truth extended from the higher quarter, beyond the world of sensual experience. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Prahlad Maharaj refused to accept any boons offered to him by the Lord. He said, "One who accepts boons in return for his service to you is not your servant but a merchant." Those who approach Guru and Krishna with their separate interest have come only to make trade. They have come to acquire something to satisfy their own purpose. And we must be very cautious to avoid such traits within ourselves. For what have I come? There may be many motives. After a famous, renowned Goswami, who was well versed in Srimad Bhagavatam, had explained the Bhagavatam in a public gathering, Srila Gaur Das Babaji Maharaj, who was present during the lecture, later ordered his servants, "Purify this place with water and cow dung." The servant was wonderstruck. "Why? It's already purified. The recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavata Katha, took place here." Gaur-Kishore Babaji said, "Oh, you heard Bhagavatam, but I only heard money, money, money." In other words, the Goswami had been very eager to have Srila Gaur-Kishore Das Babaji present at his lecture, because the publicity that Babaji Maharaj was present to hear his explanation of Srimad Bhagavatam would give the lecturer greater scope to make more money in his trade. He came to read the scripture only for that purpose, and not to satisfy Bhagavatam or Krishna. He came for his own business, not for the purpose of Bhagavatam. Trading with the Bhagavatam is an offense, aparad against the Bhagavatam, most detrimental to pure devotion. One's attitude in devotion is all important, and Srila Sridhar Swami, the renowned commentator of Srimad Bhagavatam, has stated, "Sa charpitaiva sati jadi kriyate na tu lata sat paschad apyeta." Devotional service must be first offered to the Lord, then performed, not performed and offered afterwards. We should be already committed when we come to serve, and not that we shall collect capital and later try to utilize it in the service of the Lord. The commitment is to Him, to Krishna. I have come to know about Him, not for me or for anyone else. Then why is there a preaching department for others' benefit? That department exists only because of the instruction from above. Only if I receive an impression from that higher quarter, go and preach, shall I do so, and only then will my preaching be service, and never if it is done just for name and fame that I am a good preacher, doing good work, etc. I must have engagement from the higher office, and only on their behalf I shall preach. Then it will be genuine preaching. Otherwise it will be trading. Nasa Britya Shavai Vanik. Prahlad Maharaj warned us against this trading mentality in the name of spiritual truth. Devotion is a separate and distinct plane where we live only for the center. We aspire to live and move only as an agent of the center, never disconnected from the center. This is Krishna consciousness. Reality is for itself, and we must strictly abide by this rule. He is for himself, and everything is for him, and I am also for him. and whatever I do must also be for him. We must strictly adhere to this conception and always examine whether we are doing it for him or for any other part, however important we may think it to be. And what is the guarantee? The guarantee is the Vaishnava and Shastra, or the devotee and scripture. One should not be so audacious to think that he can conceive the whole thing. One should do everything with the approval of a Vaishnava, Vaishnavera Anugatya. In the beginning, when I joined the Gaudiya Math, my godbrother, Professor Sanyal, remarked one day, if we read Bhagavatam on our own accord, we may perhaps acquire some knowledge, but not bhakti, devotion. But if a Vaishnava orders us to read, our reading will be in devotion. Even reading of the scriptures is not devotion unless it's done on the order of the Vaishnava. Independent reading is only knowledge seeking. By following the Vaishnava, our bond with the Lord is guaranteed. Sadhu Sange Krishna Nam. In the company of the devotees, chanting the name or whatever service we render is guaranteed to reach him. And what is the guarantee of that? The reply will be, his agent is saying so, and I am therefore engaged. I am not my master, I am his servant. Such consciousness must be genuine. As far as possible, success depends on this principle. Reality is for itself. The truth, however hard it may seem, must be accepted. Die to live, and reality is by itself and for itself. These sayings of Hegel can be very nicely employed by the Vaishnava school. Aham hi sarva yagyanam bhokta cha prabhureva cha. From the Bhagavad Gita. In Sri Gita we find that reality is by itself and for itself. Krishna says, I am the Lord and enjoyer of all sacrifices. Thus, Sridhar Swamipad has remarked, first surrender, then serve. Otherwise you will try to acquire something, pocket it, and fly away. Sign the contract for everything that is given to you. Then do the needful service without relying on yourself. Is such a life desirable? We have to think it out. There is so much risk. Die to live. Must we first die in order to live in the future? Are we prepared to take such a risk? Are we sufficiently disgusted with the present environment that we can risk so much for some bright future? I shall jump. Are we disgusted enough to take such a step? If I am sincere to myself, and if I have a glimpse of the bright future, then only can I take such a risk. Otherwise, no one would be so foolish to take such a risk and jump, giving up the present for uncertain future. You're going?
Yeah, we have to, because we've got tuition as well.
Okay, give some prasadam before you go. Just in something.
Okay.
Please come again if you can. We were happy to see you. Otherwise, no one would be so foolish to take such a risk and jump, giving up the present for the uncertain future. To feel the courage to jump, one must have caught a glimpse of even the tiniest ray of such a bright existence. Sukriti, devotional merit, and Shraddha, good faith, are required. If only a point of noble faith has arisen in one's heart, he may take such a bold step, and he must jump. Otherwise it is impossible. First Shraddha, then Sadhu Sangha, and Bhajana Kriya, with faith, when one has the association of the devotees. The practice of devotional service follows. With faith, one can embrace the process of realization. Shakala Chadiyabhai, Shraddha Debrita Gunagai. Give up everything and with the utmost energy praise the nobility of faith. the ray for a new and noble life. Even great scholars and stalwarts of the religious world cannot comprehend the quality of the life of surrender to Krishna. Na vai vidur rasho napi devaha. What then can common humans comprehend? Those remaining outside may be trying, but they have not yet come to the soil. When prospecting for oil or minerals, one may see many other outer symptoms indicating the presence of these elements within the earth below, but only after penetrating deeper can one confirm his find. Despite many outer symptoms, without substance, only when the search has reached to a certain stage can one know. Yes, we may have struck oil or iron or gold. So Sri Chaitanya Dev said, Eho haya age kaha ara. The divine life you are searching for is, now go further. In this way, with good faith, Shraddha, one can thus progress. Faith must be of the nature. If we supply food to the stomach, naturally the whole body will be nourished. We shall not try to nourish a particular part by local injection. If we supply water to the root, the whole tree will be fed. Similarly, by faith, we can realize that if we do everything for Him, the center of beauty personified, everything will be very beautifully done. With all your might, contribute your quota, however small, and from that point, your efforts will be distributed beautifully. And this is the highest harmony, the highest life for every particle of the nature of harmony within the whole. If you have a good cook, why try to cook separately yourself? If you simply assist him according to his direction, your ingredients cooked by his hands will be tasteful to all. So engage yourself with that principle. Whatever might you have, however small, place it at the disposal of the highest beauty, love divine, and it will be distributed, and you will also be inundated with the highest quality and degree of joy and fulfillment. Such a life of devotion has been recommended as the key to our life. Prahlad Maharaj, who is a Shuddha Bhakta, a pure devotee of the primary stage, Shantarasa, has warned us of the contamination of the trading temperament. It is a great danger in our approach for pure devotion. Nasa britya savaivanik. So we must scrutinize ourselves and abandon this trading temperament. At its root is pratishta, the quest for self-establishment, name and fame. Genuine devotion is devoid of such a temperament. Right. Okay. So what do we think? Do we have any question? Devakinanda, nice to see you after so long.
I have a question about the mind, because the mind, I think, is always kind of distracting one from the path.
Yes.
You know, all these other things coming in your mind. And in Gita, no, it says that if you control the mind, is the best friend. If you don't, then...
Yeah.
And then I think there was a quote from, I think it was Bhakti Swami, that in the morning you should kick the mind with a boot, and in the evening kick with a stick, no?
Beat with the broom.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, but then I'm thinking, well, if it should be a best friend, you know, with my sort of mundane mind, I think, well, best friend, you treat him very well, no? You take him for a lunch, you know, you visit him, he visits you, and you're very gentle and kind, you know. So how do we understand that, you know, to control the mind, you have to be like really kind of aggressive or forceful?
Well, I think it's mainly when he makes that expression, beat with the shoe, and hit with the broom. Really, it's to show that it's that important to, that it means you have to give that kind of attention, that every day you need to subdue the mind. When there was a Bengali freedom fighter, Subhash Chandra Bose, and he came to visit Saraswati Thakur, and he wanted to, it was at the time of the British Raj, and Chandra Bose, he was one of the freedom fighters to try and get rid of the British. And so he came to Saraswati Thakur and asked him, can you give some of your men to come and fight on behalf of India? And Saraswati Thakur, he said, his reply was, no, we don't need to do that. It doesn't matter, who's running the government or who's in charge. He said, but let me ask you this, if I spend all my life fighting the British and in that fight I die, what happens if I'm born in my next life in Britain? Will that mean I have to come and fight against the Indians? So anyway, what was I saying about that to do with the mind? He said, so as a freedom fighter, what you're fighting for actually is freedom for people to be controlled by their minds. But what we're doing is the opposite of that. We're fighting for people to be free of the control of their mind. So, and Subhash Chandra Bose said to him, I've never heard this kind of explanation before, but I'm already completely committed to my cause here, so said, but I won't come to ask you again for your men to come and fight. Anyhow, so this is the difference. We can be, when we say the mind can be our best friend, it means that the mind can give us proper inspiration as our friend. And but currently, generally, we're getting bad inspiration from our mind, or rather, we're being dragged by our mind. So the mind sees something that we desire, and we jump for that, we run for that, and then again the mind sees something else and we run for that, and we run for this and we run for that. So then that means we're just the slave of our mind, then we need to be in control of our mind. So there's a saying that within us there's two dogs that live inside us. Maybe you've heard this, the saying. So one dog is one dog is always misbehaved and violent and savage, and the other dog is very peaceful, submissive, and they say a man's best friend, right? So, but we know sometimes when you're facing a pit bull or something, we don't see it as our best friend. It can be terrifying. So then someone will ask, okay, these two dogs, which one will be, get the upper hand, if you like? Which one will become more prevalent within us? And the answer is whichever one you feed. So if you feed the violent dog, that one will become prevalent. If you feed the good dog, you can say, that one will become prevalent. So the mind is like that. So we need to feed the mind. And that's the meaning of the word mantra. Manas trayate. That by which chanting frees the mind, or frees us from the control of the mind. So by the chanting of the Maha Mantra, particularly, we get the proper inspiration coming from the divine world.
So, sorry, would that stop us from thinking?
No, because thoughts always, it's just a river, isn't it, thought? It always comes.
Because when I look at the Buddhist way, they do breathing, they do the sort of counting as well, up to 21 or something, just to clear the mind.
To try and free the mind, yeah. Well,
so I thought
well, I'll tell you a little story about myself. When I was a teenager, I was very deeply interested in Buddhism, and I was in correspondence with the Dalai Lama, his secretary, not him directly, but with his secretary, and I was asking for like some kind of process of meditation, Buddhist meditation. Of course, you know the Dalai Lama isn't like a pure Buddhist. He's his ideas mixed with Tibetan culture and animism, you know, like worship of gods and various other things, spirits and so on. But anyway, his secretary sent me this method of meditation, which they call Nad Yoga. Nad means sound. So, but this is the cultivation of the inner sounds within you. So the sound progresses from the sound of a bell to the sound of a flute. Go figure that. But anyway, there are various stages. But the first stage is that you have to empty your mind. You have to empty your mind of all thought so that this sound can like manifest within you.
Yeah.
So I'm like 14 years old. I'm sitting in my bedroom and I'm trying to do this like process according to the instruction there. And the first thing is, you know, like empty your mind. So then I keep thinking to myself, is the mind then, oh damn, you know. Because when you question it, it means that it's not, your mind isn't empty, right? So, you know, I'm sitting there and you know, what does my mind focus on? The kids playing football outside, you know, the neighbors gossiping, or the cars going by, like full of all these things, right? So then I thought, okay, I have to change where I am. So near where I lived there, where I was growing up, there's a place called Sriman's Yacht in Herefordshire, in the Wye Valley. The River Wye runs through it, and there's like mountainous area there. When I was at school, we used to go there to do rock climbing, abseiling, and potholing. So potholing means like exploring these caves. And in Sriman's Yacht, there are these caves that go up like 3 to 7 miles within the earth that you can enter in there. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to be able to practice this is the place I have to go, you know, because there's no distraction there. So that's what I did. I went found a good cave, went in there, and that cave was like so dark that I had a torch, but you couldn't see a hand in front of your face. It was like complete darkness. So I'm trying to practice the meditation, and all the time I'm thinking, is my, oh, damn it. Is my mind, oh, you know, like all the time. And then, of course, most of the time I just fell asleep, but I really want to, you know, do this and make it a reality. So I'm trying really hard. And then this realization came to me that thought is a form of consciousness, right? It's a flow of consciousness. Excuse me. One thought leads to another, to another, to another. It's a constant thing. Then I thought, so if I stop thinking, how will I start thinking again? Like, what mechanism will make me start thinking again? And then I thought, I'll stop thinking and be sitting here, and maybe, you know, like in a week or a month or a year, someone will just find this body there, you know, of this guy, because thought is like who you are, in a sense. It's your consciousness, right? So then you stop it, what's going to happen? Then I thought, oh, maybe this is actually what they mean by nirvana, according to the Buddhists, right? And Guru Maharaj confirms that, dissolve the mental system. So if you stop thinking, then you don't exist anymore, really. You know, so your flow of your consciousness is finished. And then I became terrified of that. I became terrified. I thought, I don't want that. I don't want that at all. You know, I didn't think this was what I was, you know, like signing up for. And then I came out of that cave, I was in there almost a week, and I came out, and I was terrified, and I hitchhiked back to town, and all the time I'm thinking, I've had this, like, been saved from this so-called nirvana. I really don't want that. So it's not about stopping the flow of your thought. That Krishna explains it in the Gita, that those thoughts, they run through you like a river. The trick is not to grasp hold of them. That's where, the mind does that. It grasps hold of some thought and plays around with it. And then you're in the thrall of that. So by controlling the mind, and you can do that by introspection and meditation, you can see the working of the mind. And you can see how it controls you. And gradually, that's the first step in kind of understanding the workings of the mind. But as our Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj said, my mind's not always giving me bad advice. Sometimes it gives me good advice too. But it's a kind of a mix of things. But in any case, we're still, like under the sway of the mind. So then you have to control the mind, make it your friend by cultivating the spiritual side of your inner life, if you like. So that comes by chanting the Maha Mantra, and gradually you become the master of your mind, and rather than just being dragged here, there, and everywhere by your mind, because we're full of desire, we're full of so many desires, but by our intelligence we can understand that not all of those desires need to be pursued. So this is what Krishna tells Arjuna: you can conquer your mind by your intelligence. And then, of course, Arjuna says, but I think it's more easy to control the wind than it is to control the mind. And Krishna says, yes, it's true. That is true. But by perseverance, you may be able to do that by the cultivation of your intelligence and your inner, and the awakening of your inner self. Then naturally the mind will become your servant or your friend, rather than you just being battered by your mind wherever you go. And we know that. We're walking down the road, we see something or someone that seems desirable to us, we become fixated on that, Sometimes it's uncontrollable in us. But gradually, through the process of mantra and meditation, we become the master of the mind. In fact, but that's not the goal of chanting the Maha Mantra. It's just one of the side effects of chanting the Maha Mantra. But it means that that when we it doesn't mean like the mind as an entity that you have to beat it with your shoes and hit it with the broom in the morning and the evening. It means that undesirable part of it needs to be subdued, even if that means beating it with the shoe or hitting it with the broom. Don't become a victim to that. Find the better path. Find the deeper understanding. Through your mantra, you'll be able to control your mind and conquer your mind and be the master of your mind. That's what it means. You can be the master of so many things in this world, but if you're not a master of yourself, it's all meaningless,
Some people can't, when they have all these talk shows on TV, some people can't get no sleep, or because of mental health, because all these thoughts on their head.
Yeah.
That's why they sort of meditate. Or
Thoughts will always be there.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. You can't stop that.
It's good to reduce them.
But you just have to let them flow through. Don't grab hold of any of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I came across that when I was reading about Bhagavad Gita, and the mind is your best friend. The only interpretation that I took out of it, I said, yes, that's a lovely thing. Always think positive. Anything that comes negative, subdue it. And go for the positive thinking on the right side. And things that will elevate things. That's all I took out of it.
Yes, that's what Krishna says, isn't it?
Yeah.
Don't let your mind degrade you, but your mind should elevate you. So that means the thoughts that you entertain. So that actually means that's a principle within our practice, sadhu sangha. So or sat sangha, proper association. So that can mean with the sadhus, with the other devotees that are endeavoring on this path. But it also means what you allow your consciousness to be subjected to. So, like if you're just sitting in front of a computer playing games about killing people all the time, I don't know what they are, but you know those computer games, you're just shooting everyone, and then it's bound to affect your consciousness. It's bound to. So that's not satsanga. And like reading all the gossip about this celebrity and that celebrity and all these things, that's not satsanga. Satsanga means to expose your consciousness to those things that'll elevate you, not to things that'll degrade you or enslave you. And I mean, I know most people have some kind of a handle on those things, but there are examples of like this boy in Germany, that he's so addicted to these like shoot 'em up computer games. He never goes out of his room. He locks his room. His mother has to leave his dinner outside on a tray, and and sometimes he'll eat it. Sometimes he's so absorbed in it he doesn't even eat. It's like in this other world, and what they were so worried about him, his parents, that they thought the only thing we can do is we have to cut off his internet, cut it off. So that happens, right? His game goes down, everything, What's the result of that? He tried to kill his mother and his father because of a stupid computer game. Because it was so important to him, and they stopped that. But this is also what Krishna tells in the Gita, that when we have something which we're deeply attached to, that gratifies our need for whatever it may be, if somebody stops that, the result of that is anger. That's how anger is born. Anger is born by the frustration of our desire. Something blocks the fulfillment of our desire, it transforms into anger. And anger, as Krishna explains, is one of the gateways to hell. So, we want to mold our life in such a way that we're not going down that path. Because anything can stop that, right? Anything can if we're so attached to something, to achieving something in this mundane world, and somebody stops it, it can be a terrible thing, can't it? We see people who are so much focused on money that they'll do anything to get that. They'll kill their mother to get that. They'll do anything if it fulfills their desire.
And they've got money and they want more money.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam that when I was a pig, I devoured a whole trough of stool, but I wasn't satisfied. That's what they eat, right, pigs? I wasn't satisfied. When I was an elephant, I devoured a whole forest, and still I wasn't satisfied. And now I'm a human being. I have so many desires. I want 1 million, and I want 1 billion, and more, and I'm never satisfied. So this is told in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is called Hrid Rogam. Hrid means the heart, and Rogam means disease. This is a heart disease, a diseased consciousness. You've developed a diseased consciousness, pursuing all of these things, that it becomes such an unhealthy obsession. Then, as Srila Prabhupada used to say, of course, in those that nowadays it's, Bill Gates and all these people who are considered to be the most wealthy, what's that guy who runs Amazon, Bezos, considered to be the wealthiest people in the world, right? In the time of Srila Prabhupada, it was Rockefeller.
Yeah.
And so he used to say, you may be Rockefeller, but when you get up in the morning, you can still only drink 1 cup of coffee and eat 2 pieces of toast. Just being the richest man in the world doesn't give you the capacity to be the greatest enjoyer. Your capacity is still the same. Whether you're a poor man or whether you're a rich man, 1 cup of coffee, 2 pieces of toast, you can't really do more than that. You don't get any capacity to do more than that. So, it's all like an illusion. And Bhagavatam calls it Hridrogam, the disease of the heart. And these things, they bind us deeply to this material world. We need to become free of those things. And not necessarily independently free of those things, but by exposing yourself, your consciousness, to spiritual truth, spiritual association, all of those other things will disappear.
Well, you just mentioned Rockefeller. I was thinking of Trump. The reason he wants to get back, he just wants power, right, to show people.
It's the same. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, like
Deeply diseased people. These people are. Their consciousness,
it's not money, just power.
deeply diseased. So we also run the risk of that. And fortunately, these people stand as examples to us how not to be. If we're interested in spiritual life, you can bet your life that there are many people out there who they would give their arm and leg to be like Donald Trump. He's their hero. I know people like that, from my friends in America. I know people like that. They think he's the greatest thing that ever walked the earth. But most serious thinking people can understand it is just a big puppet in the hands of Maya. And, as Srila Prabhupada said in his commentary to Ishopanishad, the world is ruled by man-eating demons who are determined to destroy the world. And also in Gita, Krishna says similar thing. So, these people, they'd rather destroy the world than let anybody else have it, And we see that. We see that in America, right? The complete breakdown of government, the complete breakdown of democracy, and he's cheering it on. Now he's getting his comeuppance. But, this is scary stuff. It's scary stuff that people like that become the leaders of the world's, richest, wealthiest, most powerful nation. You've got crazy people like that running it.
And you got access to the button as well.
That's what I mean. So anyhow, we should see these people as examples of what not to be in our life. And we should, try and look to the scripture and the saints and to our spiritual guides as examples of who we should aspire to be in our life. We are not saints, we are not perfect, we are not anything, but we can endeavor, because every journey begins with a single step. So at least we should try to be going in the right direction. At least our ideals that inspire us should be spiritual ideals. So Srila Maharaj, he said, we judge a man by his ideal. So he may not be able to attain his ideal today or tomorrow, but if he doesn't compromise with his ideal, if he sets his ideal, one day he'll get there. One day we'll get there. Then we can understand this person has a higher ideal in life, then he's a higher type of person. It's not about what we can achieve, or what we have achieved, but it's what we desire. So you can desire to be the ruler of the world and the richest man in the world, or this or that, and you may even get that, but somebody said, if the only measure of your wealth is how much money you have, then you're poor indeed. There's more things that make us wealthy. Who we actually are as people, that should be our aspiration, not just for things that we can get. People are mad. Now people are mad for stuff, aren't they, in this material world? We see that everywhere. Everywhere you look, they're building these storage places, right? Shore guard storage or this or that, right? Why? Why is there such a demand for these storage units, because people have got so much stuff they can't fit it in their house anymore. They have to hire. You have to hire a storage unit and store their stuff there. So that's madness, isn't it? What do you actually need in life? You don't need so many things. But advertising and, you know, the materialistic, can say, influence of this world is trying to tell us that that's what you need to be successful in this world. You need more stuff. You need more money. You need more power. You need more, you know, a bigger car, a bigger television, a bigger house. You know, these are the measures of your success in life. They're not. If you can be a master of your own self, then you're a success in life.
Or just a little bit of money, just to get by.
We're not saying there's anything wrong with money.
Yeah,
When I was a few years ago now, before the war, but I was preaching in
Before the war? Which one?
the war between Russia and the Ukraine.
Oh,
I was in the Ukraine.
I thought you were talking about...
No, I was in Ukraine. We had a festival there, Veda Life Festival, and I was giving a talk there. And of course, the people from Kiev, a lot of people from Russia there as well at the time, you know, but they're from the previously Soviet Union, right? So the philosophy of the Soviet Union was communism, and so they're brought up with this idea that everybody should be equal, and they have an inbuilt idea that to have more than your neighbors, there's something wrong with that, you know, that almost it's a sin. And this was one of the questions that one gentleman asked me: is it a sin for me to have more wealth than my neighbor? And I can understand, because that's their conditioning prior to that. Although it's a very flawed idea, because we see that in the Soviet Union that everyone's equal, but some people are more equal than others. You understand? But anyway, so my reply to him was, no, it's not. It's not a sin for you to have more money than your neighbor. It's what you do with that money that makes it good or bad. It's not the money. There's nothing wrong with money, but if you use that money for wicked things, then it's bad. If you use it for good things, then it's good, right? So it's like a knife. You can use a knife to chop a carrot and cook it to offer to Krishna, or you can use a knife to kill people. The knife isn't at fault. It's the consciousness behind that. So, okay, by our karma, we may have more or less money than our neighbor. That's just how it is, right? Some people have more, some people have less in everything, but let's say in money. So what will you do with that money now? If you just utilize that money for selfish things, and you see your neighbor starving and you can't even offer them a crust of bread, then that's not a good utilization of your money. But if you utilize what God has given you for His service and for the service of your neighbor, then it can be good, and you will be seen as being good. So, not that we're just out to be seen to be good. We should strive to be good. But there's nothing in this world that's actually good or bad. Only our consciousness in which we engage with it depends on whether it's good or bad. How we react to everything. Is it in an enlightened way, or is it in a selfish and gross way? So, then we should try, if we can master our own selves, then our inner inspiration will always guide us in the right way. But more or less, it's impossible to master yourself, as Arjuna says in the Gita. I think it'd be easier to control the wind than it is to control the mind. But Krishna says, yes, by using the sword of righteousness, intelligence, and the God-given faculties that you have, with perseverance, you can master the mind. And in Kali Yuga especially, we have the additional benefit of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is specifically for Kali Yuga. Mahaprabhu has given this as the panacea for everything. The medicine that we need for our spiritual upliftment. We need that medicine. We're all spiritually diseased. We're all laboring under a false pretext of selfishness or extended selfishness. We need to change that consciousness. But we can only change that consciousness through the development of our inner self. And that means we need help from someone else. Srila Maharaj, he wrote this essay many years ago. It was published in the Gaudiya magazine. It said, "To err is human. To err is inevitable for all of us, not being perfect. But although we are imperfect, there's something inside of us that strives for perfection. But if we were able to get that ourselves, we'd have already done it. If we could make ourselves perfect, as human beings, we'd have already done that. But we can't do that. So that's because there's something within us that's missing. And that opens the field for the help of the divine agent or Sri Guru. So Sri Guru can connect us with the higher, and this way we can reach perfection, not by our own endeavor, not by our own capacity, but by grace. So in this way, Guru Maharaj explains the principle of Guru, that we are reaching towards the divine, the seekers after truth, reaching towards the divine. And the divine, or Krishna, he's extending his hand to us. Where the two meet, that's called Guru. So that principle is Guru. And Guru may come in many forms. But generally, because we're absorbed in external things, we find the Guru is called Mahanta Guru. That means in a spiritually enlightened person, we see that person as Guru. But Guru existing also in your heart. The problem is that we mistake the heart for the mind. We can't distinguish one from the other. So in that case, we can't rely on what's called Chaitanya Guru, the Guru in our heart. We can't rely on that as being a reliable agent of divinity because of all the other crap that gets mixed up in our consciousness. Yeah. So therefore we need the Mahanta Guru, Krishna's agent, who comes in the form of a person. And that can be in many ways appear to us. But it is necessary for us. Like one candle can light 1,000,000 candles, one original candle. So similarly, one enlightened soul can awaken unlimited number of souls that are sleeping to enlightenment. It is not unreasonable. Only we have to have some some willingness on our side to participate. Some participation on our side is necessary. So there's an example given in the scripture of the cat. When the cat carries its kitten, it just in its mouth, it picks up the kitten in its mouth and goes. And then there's the example of the monkey. When the mother wants to take the child jumps on and holds on to the mother, and mother takes it this way. So we're more like that, the monkey. That we want to go somewhere that's beyond our capacity for us to go there. But our mother or Sri Guru can take us there. We just have to grab a hold and go like that. But of course, both of those examples fall short because we're not monkeys or cats. But the idea is that if we can cooperate with the agent of the Lord and agents of the Lord, because it's not necessarily just one, then they will take us there. They'll take us there. So it just needs our willing participation. But this is our problem, you see. Our problem is that we don't want to participate. When the Lord comes to grace us, we're like, no. I've still got this to do, that to do, this to achieve, that to achieve. I've got my own things going on here. When all of that's been sorted, then I'll come to you. But, that's our foolishness, because actually there's nothing in this world that we should aspire for. Nothing at all that's necessary for us to have for our eternal benefit, because everything that you have will be finished one day. And if it's not finished, you'll be finished. Your body will be finished, and you can go to your next body, but you can't come back and claim anything. I saw this thing on the internet, what they call them, memes. It's like this gravestone. It says, I'm just reincarnating, I'll be back. And in brackets it says, don't touch my stuff. But the truth is, you can't touch there is no stuff anymore. It's not yours. Once the body is disconnected with it, it's not yours. There's a story that Srila Prabhu used to tell about a boy. And there are many shows, programs on television, documentaries, where they similar things, right? That this boy, as he grew up, he could remember, oh, this was where I lived before. This was my wife. She's still alive. These are my children. And in this case, he owned a video store in his last life. And when he came there and saying, like, it's me, I'm back, then his sons, they beat him with their shoes, chased him off, like, get out of here, you charlatan, you're not our dad. But it was. But they couldn't recognize him. So this is the nature of this world. Everything that we do, everything that we achieve, everything is finished. Finally, it's finished. Nobody cares. In 100 years from now, who will even remember that we lived? Doesn't matter, does it? And even if they do remember, so what? We're long gone. So Saraswat Thakur says that your karma is already coming to you. How much you're destined to enjoy and how much you're destined to suffer in this world, it's already preordained by what you did in your last life. Then there's nothing you can do to stop that happening. And also there's nothing you can do to make it happen. So don't waste your time. It's coming anyway. If you're going to be rich, you'll be rich. If you're not going to be rich, you won't be rich. People tell us when we're at school and so on, if you work hard, you can achieve everything. It's a lie. I know people who've worked hard all their life and they've got nothing at the end of it. They worked really hard, but they didn't get anything at the end of it.
That's karma prevails.
Yeah, that's right. So if that's coming to you, it's coming. And if it's not coming to you, then it's not coming. We're often thinking we can change our circumstance and that'll change our karma. But, I'm miserable living here and all these things are happening to me and I'll just move somewhere else, then I'll be happy. But the problem with that is, wherever you go, there you are. You're still the same person, wherever you go, with the same mentality and the same rubbish that's going on inside of you. That hasn't changed, just your circumstances changed. The amount of your suffering or the amount of your enjoyment may come in a different way, but it's still the same. It's still the same. So Saraswat Thakur says, don't worry about that. Don't give your time for that. Let it happen as it's meant to happen. Utilize your time for the cultivation of your inner self and the service of your Lord Krishna. That will be the ultimate benefit of your life, because even when everything else in this world is gone, that remains. That can never be taken from you, because that's part of the eternal. You've connected with the plane of eternity. That's it already in your bank balance, you can say, your spiritual bank. When you're born in your next life, that'll come to you at the proper time. That is confirmed. Krishna says in the Gita, Arjuna asks Krishna, what happens if somebody practices spiritual life but they're not successful in this end? They don't reach their goal in this life. Then aren't they He said, aren't they like a riven cloud with no place in either sphere? They got nothing in the material world because they gave it all up for the pursuit of spiritual life, but they couldn't attain that, so they're like a riven cloud, nowhere, isn't it? Krishna says, no. Whatever little they've gained in this life, in connection with the spiritual reality, I maintain that, and in their next life, they'll take up again from where they left off in this life. So it's all good, then utilize your time for that. Even if you don't get 100% result this time, if you did 80%, that's where you start in your next life, 80%.
Debit credit.
Yeah, that's right. So utilize your time for that. Then, the result is in his hand. Like everything. Whatever you endeavor for in this life, the result's in his hand, not in your hand. So you have to ascertain what it is that you actually need. What is it that's essential for you in your life, in who you are? First of all, try to ascertain who you are and ascertain where you are and where you need to go. Then everything will come according to that. But you need to be a searcher, a seeker after truth. Not just that, this was the religion that my parents followed, so I follow that. No, you yourself have to own that. You yourself have to look within you and try to understand what is your inner necessity. No one else can walk your path for you. You have to do that. Then Saraswat Thakur said, in India, and I'm sure you all know this, and I have also some experience of this, that people, they make some religious festival in their house, and they pay a priest to come and do the worship, right? It's a common thing. And I've been to many of such functions in India and here. And they pay the priest, and he does the puja, he does the worship, he does everything. Okay, but Saraswat Thakur says, it's not good enough for you to pay for someone else to worship Krishna. You yourself have to worship him. You have to do it. Maybe you don't know all the mudras and the mantras and all those things. It doesn't matter, because what does Krishna say? If you offer me a fruit, a flower, a leaf, or water, and if it's from your heart, I'll accept that. You don't have to know what the mantra is for offering that. If the mantra is from your heart, please Lord, accept this, and he'll accept if it's from your heart. But you have to do that. Not good enough to pay somebody else to do it on your behalf. You yourself have to worship Krishna, because you are Nitya Krishna Das. That's your eternal position. You are the eternal servant of Krishna. Don't worry about everybody else. They are too. But if you realize that, you're like one step ahead. Yes, you have to look within yourself. And that's not just a one-time thing, that's always. Always you should be examining your inner motivation for something, because sometimes it's easy to go astray. Then look, always checking yourself. And Srila Gurudev used to say in Islam they have this thing called a saltamani. That means they have to make some account, how much I've given and how much I've taken. And he said we should do that within ourselves. How much have I tried to serve Krishna? How much have I tried to exploit Krishna and Krishna's possessions? Because everything belongs to him, doesn't belong to us. But we're still taking that. Yes, give it to me. I want to use it. So
today in the Gita, he said, even if you think of me, you have my blessings.
Yes. There are so many things. Like this lady was here earlier on, and she's saying, I tried to read Bhagavad Gita, but with the Sanskrit, I couldn't do it, so I had to. It was too complicated, too difficult to understand. And I must admit, when I first read Bhagavad Gita, I also found it was like that. Especially the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. I mean, that's observing the armies on the battlefield. It's just a big list of names of all the warriors, and it's like, what? You know, like all these Sanskrit names, and you're just thinking, oh my God, is this what the book's going to be all the way through? Maybe I just close it up and finish it, and you're like, but I persevered, and you find that I think it's almost like a kind of a test, that first chapter. Can you get beyond this? If you can get beyond this, then okay. And then as you get further in, Krishna says to Arjuna, who reads this holy conversation worships me with their intelligence. So that appealed to me. When I read that, I thought, okay, then I'm going on. I'm going to go on now. And my intelligence, try to absorb that in Krishna, and it'll become purified. So, don't give up. It isn't an easy text, Bhagavad Gita, but it's very fulfilling. Even, who is it? One of the American transcendentalists, David Henry Thoreau, he said that I bathe my intellect in the Bhagavad Gita every day, and by which I feel that the literature of the West is puny and trivial in comparison. So it's a great investment in your time and your spiritual well-being to study Bhagavad Gita. If you can do that, like every day, we should try and do that every day. Even if it's just one verse, try to do that every day. And we'll find and especially if you do that early in the morning, because our consciousness is like a rocket ship. Whichever way you direct it at the beginning of the day, that's the trajectory it's going to take for the rest of the day. So if you use your time early in the day for cultivating spiritual knowledge, study Bhagavad Gita, chant your mantra, do all these things, then your whole day, your consciousness will go in that trajectory. If you just wake up in the morning and thinking about all the things that worry us. This is why it's told in the scripture that the Brahma Muhurta, that means 1 hour, about 90 minutes before the sunrise, best time for practicing spiritual life. Because then, the kids are still asleep, the world's still asleep. You can get up and utilize that time. And by the time the rest of the world wakes up, you're already good for the day. Your consciousness is already going in the right direction. You can deal with everything in a spiritual way, because that's the trajectory that you gave at the beginning of your day. And you'll benefit from that. It's not just, some haphazard idea. It's actually a proven thing. Of course, that doesn't mean we don't need to meditate on the Lord or practice our sadhana for the rest of the day. But if you can start it early, you'll be benefited for the rest of your day. And really you will. It's like magic. That day, that time of the day, it's a special time of the day.
How would you relate Guru, about the teaching of Buddhism and Krishna consciousness teaching? That all this, what we were saying, sums up to one thing to me. It's contentment.
Yes.
How are the two linked?
Well, everything is linked. We consider the Buddha as an avatar of the Lord. But there are many Buddhas. If you study Buddhism, there's not just one Buddha. There's many Buddhas. So generally the Buddha that most people know is Siddhartha Gautama. But that's not the Buddha mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, of the Das Avatar. That's a different Buddha. The Buddha in Srimad Bhagavatam is his mother and father. They're mentioned. They're not the same. It's not the same person. But basically the teaching is the same. That Buddha came to establish ahimsa dharma. So at the time, before Buddha's appearance in Kali Yuga, many people were using the Vedic injunctions to justify the slaughter of animals. So because there's some allowance given in the scripture for animal sacrifice. But what they forget or gloss over is that animal sacrifice is forbidden in Kali Yuga, because it cannot be done properly. In previous ages, when especially in Treta Yuga, when sacrifice was the main process of self-realization, they had all kinds of different sacrifices. Gomeda was one sacrifice. That means cow sacrifice. So we know that to kill a cow is the worst sin. But how they would do that is that an old cow would enter the fire and come out of the fire with a rejuvenated new body. No question of the cow dying. By the power of that sacrifice, the cow would be rejuvenated and come out. It's a highly auspicious thing. But no one can do that today. If anyone can do that, they'd be like a miracle. In those days, in the previous ages, you didn't need a lighter to light the sacrificial fire. By mantra, you can tell the mantra, fire will light. That's like prerequisite. If a Brahmin can't do that, then you don't want that Brahmin at your yajna. Any Brahmin worth his salt, from previous time, immediately they can light the fire by mantra. Maybe in India you can find some Brahmin that can still do that, but that person will be considered like a god, isn't it? Most people can't do that, can't even do that. And what to speak of being able to do the animal sacrifice, that the cow enters the fire into the old body and comes out with a new body. Impossible. All you got is the sin of murdering a cow. That's never supported. But this was going on. That's why in Kali Yuga it's forbidden. Animal sacrifice, the surrogacy means that if your wife or you can't conceive a child with your wife, you can conceive a child with your brother's wife. This was allowed in previous ages, forbidden in this age, for understandable reasons. The practice of sati is forbidden in this age. In previous times, when the husband would die, wife would enter the fire with husband, and wherever he's going, she would also go. Now that's murder. She's kicking and screaming. They were still doing that up to a few hundred years ago, especially in Orissa. And the government stopped it because it's murder. You know that it comes after Sati's meditation and absorbing herself in yogic fire. Previous times, people could do that. In this age, that's not possible. You're just murdering a woman on the fire. What a horrible thing! What a terrible, horrible thing. So we understand that's forbidden. And the fourth thing that's forbidden in Kali Yuga age is sannyas. That means karma sannyas, not Vaishnava sannyas. Karma sannyas means that at the end of your life, you take sannyas and you live as a hermit and the local people feed you and all of these things. That kind of sannyas is forbidden in Kali Yuga. Vaishnava sannyas is not forbidden. That means to become a preacher in the red robe of the sannyasi, that's allowed, but not karma sannyas as part of varnashram. So these four things, forbidden. Animal sacrifice, forbidden. So this was still going on. The Brahmins are telling, no, in the scripture it tells this, we can still do it. Everyone following that. The animals prayed to the Lord because there's nothing auspicious about that. They prayed to the Lord for help. He descended as Buddha. And the Buddha said, forget what it says in the scripture, just follow what I am teaching you. So this way, he stopped the animal sacrifices. And he taught ahimsa, non-violence. And the tenfold noble path, all of these things. He established that. It was necessary at that time. Then, later, Shankaracharya appeared. Shankaracharya is Mahadev, Lord Shiva himself. And he appeared to teach the same philosophy as Buddha, but to reintroduce the concept of the Veda and reintroduce the concept of the Atma. Buddhists don't believe in Atma. They don't believe there's an eternal soul. They believe that when you reincarnate from one body to the other, it's just your mental system that's going from one to another. That survives at the time of death, goes to another body. When you reach nirvana, that's dissolved, everything's finished. So Shankara said more or less the same thing, except he said, but this is proven, these things are proven in the Veda, and he taught the Vedanta according to him. And also, he reintroduced the concept of the eternal soul. So then after Shankara, then the Vaishnava acharyas appeared. Madhvacharya, Ramanujacharya, Vishnu Swami, and Nimbarka Swami. The acharyas of the four Chari Vaishnava Sampradayas, and they all in their own way defeated Shankara's philosophy that everything is one, that you are a God, I am God, we're all God. No, they said no, God exists eternally, you also exist eternally, but you're eternally different from him. He's eternally the master, you're eternally his servant. In various ways, different philosophies, Shuddha Dvaita, Vishishta Dvaita, Dvaita Dvaita, they taught this. And then Chaitanya Dev, when he came, he harmonized all of these conceptions in his Achinta Beda Ved Siddhanta. So what all of those Vaishnava acharyas gave is called Vad. Advaita Vad, that's Shankara. Vishishta Dvaita Vad, Shuddha Dvaita Vad, Dvaita Dvaita Vad. Vad means theory. But Mahaprabhu came and he gave Siddhanta. Siddhanta means conclusion. So, and in this way he harmonized all the different four teachings of the four sampradayas and made in one, and surpassed their teachings and harmonized all of their teachings. So this is a kind of historical thing that was necessary. So the Buddha came when it was necessary for that. Shankara came when it was necessary for that. The Vaishnava acharyas came when their time was necessary. And it all came to you can say, the ultimate fulfillment in the appearance of Chaitanya Dev. And he's the Kali Yuga avatar, and he's teaching the process of Sankirtan as the method for self-realization in this age. So everything is related, because what we have to remember is that this is the Lord's domain, actually. So everything is happening under his will. And so nothing happens without his sanction. Just that everything is necessary at a particular time. So anyhow, we should stop today and begin our Sankirtan. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bhargya Ki Jai. Jai Sri Chaitanya Saraswata Acharya Brinda Ki Jai. Samadvaita Vaishnava Mandali Ki Jai. Sri Harinama Sankirtan Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.